Hey, this week I turned 60 years old, and so I thought we'd just take a little bit of time to do a little bit of reflecting on those 60 years.
Hello and welcome everyone to episode 149 of the Calibrate Life podcast. I'm Donna.
And I'm David.
This podcast, it's about calibrating our lives because as spiritual leaders, we experience transformation before we can lead transformation.
And it's about pressing beyond the tough stuff to experience the joy of living, leading, and loving.
And it's about the great adventure because life is an adventure to be joyfully lived.
And we are on this journey, and it's out of this journey that we speak. And that, my friends, is what this podcast is about.
And today's podcast, well, it's about your reflections on the great adventure at age 60, David.
Yes. It's been kind of a crazy time to transition into a new decade of life during the present challenges. And we're not going to talk about the present challenges so much just because I'm kind of tired of talking about it.
It's all we see, all we hear,
yeah,
constantly on our minds.
It's still a reality and something that we are going to deal with for a while, but that's not what this podcast today is necessarily about.
No.
You know, these are things that I wrote, and by the way, as you said, I think in the introduction, there'll be some brief episode notes at calibrate360.com/149. But mostly this is out of my journal. These are some thoughts that I wrote on the morning of my 60th birthday, and was just thinking about a lot of things, and I thought that would be a great connect for the podcast. Hey, what do you say we do an Africa update right here at the beginning? Got to have a little bit of music for it. We have been working on a video. We had to scrap a couple of videos that we prepared back in March for some obvious reasons, and we'll be releasing a couple of new videos either today or tomorrow. Just kind of an update. I think it's a pretty cool update and includes a lot of pictures of a lot of the places that we've been and the journey so far and just exactly where we are.
Yeah.
So if you would like to connect with the Africa Mission, you can do so at calibratemission.com. There you can click on the financial support button, become a partner, and we appreciate all of our partners. We're just overwhelmed with the generosity and the participation of our partners. We pray for you daily. We want you to know that. And as it relates to the video, there's also a click button for subscribing to the newsletter. And we haven't been so great at putting newsletters out. The last month, I've just been trying to figure out, how do we approach this? And we've worked that out. We'll put a link to the newsletter in there. So that's calibratemission.com. Do you have anything to say about the Africa mission?
Well, we're still going. We just don't know when, David.
Yeah, we're working hard on everything. In fact, I think we might be busier now than we were, but we're not traveling as much.
No, but we have been busy.
Have been pretty busy.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And still looking forward to getting there and getting it done.
Yeah, so that's kind of what's happening with Africa. But to get back into the podcast.
Yeah, in the middle of everything, David, in the middle of this whole thing, and I had planned, I was going to do some sort of a big party for you and all that kind of stuff.
Well, thank you.
All of that got nixed because you turned 60 in the middle of it all, and you had a lot of thoughts. I mean, you write a lot, and that morning you did.
Yeah, and it was a great day. It turned out to be a great day. All of our kids came together on Zoom from the various places that they are, and they honored me greatly with their expressions of love. So I appreciated that, and that kind of made the day. And one thing I used to long for, and I can remember 7 years ago. Of course, most people who listen know our story, but I remember just feeling alone and feeling like I would see other people with large families and just kind of feel alone. But I have a rather large family now.
You do, yeah.
Yeah, so that was a great time.
Yeah, well, it was a great day.
Mm-hmm.
Well, David, we start out and we say often, you say often, because you wrote this, pressing beyond the tough stuff and experiencing the joy of living, leading, and loving, because Life
Yeah.
is an adventure to be joyfully lived.
Yeah, and I think that was really prompted on the old 60th birthday just because um, that that surfaced of that life is a great adventure to be joyfully lived. And reflecting on that, it's more than a byline for our podcast, but it's really the way that we live. And as we calibrate our lives, there's a lot of tweaking, there's a lot of adjustment that has to take place along the way to get
Mm-hmm.
to the place where God is actually leading us.
Yeah.
But why is this our byline? And I mean, there's been times that I've thought about just changing that and going a different direction with that whole intro thing. But that really is one of the points that we live our lives out of.
Right, because it's so easy for us to do, right, David? I mean,
Yeah, yeah. Um,
we struggle. We struggle with this, actually.
there's a line in Shakespeare's Hamlet that's pretty popular, and it is, "The lady doth protest too much, methinks."
Okay, so what does that have to do with it?
Well, um, that line is basically quoted when somebody's talking a whole lot about something, and you begin to suspect that the reason that this is such a focus for them is because they're struggling with it. I gotta say, I'm always just a little bit suspicious of a preacher that has a hobby horse of this sin that they preach against just voraciously, vociferously, and every time you hear them, I after a while, I start wondering if this is something that they struggle with in their lives. That's kind of the dark side of it. But sometimes what people talk about a lot and what they focus on a lot, and even in our values structure and the things that we use as the mechanisms to guide our lives, those things are usually there for a reason
Mm-hmm.
to keep reminding us of something that we've got to watch. And so,
Got to get a little drink there.
real life here.
Yeah. Well, we talk about wanting to live a joyful life. And that is something that we often struggle with and we contend with. It's important to us, but it's not easy sometimes.
Yeah, it has been a challenge, and it is something that we contend for, that
Mm-hmm.
we are going to press through tough stuff, and we are going to press into um, joy
Mm-hmm.
and joyful living. And we are determined to live a joyful life if it kills us. So that's our commitment.
Yeah.
It's a decision. It's not something that we fell into, but it's something that we have decided. So I thought about that a lot on my actual 60th birthday.
Yeah. And you wrote a lot about it. So it is a determined focus. Would you like a drink of my tea?
No.
Would that help? Okay. All right.
Mhm.
But yeah, it is a determined focus, even though it's not always the easiest thing for us to do. But you wrote a good bit. What did you write about, David?
Well, I decided to I have several lists of like things I've learned in life
Okay.
and recording those things. And that's kind of what today's podcast is about.
Okay. All right. So
Yeah.
when you wrote there, you said this is a determined focus. And it will probably need to remain a determined focus, but it is a decision that we made. It's not just something that we fell into.
Yeah. Thanks for covering for me while I'm trying to get the piece of dust out of
I'm
my
doing
throat.
the best I can.
Yes. If this were not live,
We would start over.
we would have already started over. Yeah. And so here they are.
Okay.
First of all, and I'm going to have to edit the audio of this before I post it. So, fair warning that I've just got to clean some of that stuff up. So let's take a breath and let's jump back into it here.
Okay. All right. So you wrote that it's a decision, not something that we fell into.
Yeah. So we're determined to press beyond the tough stuff and to experience the joy of living, leading, and loving.
Okay. And what are some of the decisions that you've made? What are some of the
Now, some of my reflection, it goes to, first of all, plan less and live right now. And these are just 7 bullet points
Okay.
of things that I've anchored in and that I was thinking about moving forward. 20 years ago, in April of 2000, I went to a cabin on our campground, our fellowship's campground, and I spent 3 days praying and fasting as I was coming up on age 40. And my focus was the coming 20 years. How was I going to spend the next 20 years? What were those 20 years going to look like? And in the scope of that, I strategized and I prayed and I sought God, what do these 20 years need to look like? And I had determined, and I even wrote down that 20 years from then, in April of 2020, that I would spend 3 days praying and fasting and thinking about the next 20 years and what those were to look like. And in my mind, I thought that those would be days of celebration,
Mm-hmm.
as well as recalibration moving into the next 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
And as I have approached 60, I've thought a lot about those notes. Along the way, I've pulled them out, I've reread them, and there's a lot of things in those notes that didn't happen.
Hmm.
There's a lot of the dreams that were unfulfilled, a lot of the strategies, a lot of the plans. I didn't see it happen.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, what I see now, 20 years later, is incredibly different than what I thought it would look like
Yeah.
20 years ago.
Yeah.
And as I look at it, though, there is a core that has held true. There is a foundation that was there and that was woven in, the foundation that's been woven throughout my life that held true. And so the core of it did happen, but a lot of the ways I thought it would look just flat didn't happen.
Yeah. All right. So,
Yeah. So as I'm thinking about, I did not do the 3 day prayer and fast
you were,
this month. I probably will do it,
yeah.
but with the current situation, I didn't do it. But the very first thing I was thinking is plan less and live right now.
Okay.
That in the next 20 years, I'm a strategy guy. I mean, I have strategy coming out the wazoo all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I plan, I dream, I write things down. I've got these rolls of paper where I just roll them out and I draw images and pictures and I kind of map things out. And those things have helped me a lot, but I've decided to plan less. And some of it is that we decided a few years ago that we would get in a coracle. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, there's the story of the coracle that the ancient Irish monks would
Mm-hmm.
fashion this little boat without a rudder, without a sail, without oars. They would push it into the ocean, and wherever the currents took them, they determined that that would be the will of God for their lives, and that's where they would share the gospel. And we decided a few years ago to get in the coracle, to push out from the shore, and to leave the oars on the shore and see where the wind of the Spirit of God would take us. It sounds a little bit irresponsible in some ways,
Yeah.
and some of the decisions that we've made look a little irresponsible, and I even question them sometimes.
Yeah.
But as we're moving into the next 20 years, I do want to be led just of the Spirit more so, and to plan a lot less and just live right now, to live according to the things that are unfolding in my life right now, instead of anticipating and strategizing and having so many contingencies of things that I can't control.
So,
And even the thing of praying and saying, okay, God, I believe that this is your will for my life, so you've got to open all of these doors. And then we pray fervently for those doors to open, and sometimes some of them never open. And as a 40-year-old and as a 30-year-old, I just had this confidence that because I felt that God had shown me something, that these doors were sooner or later going to swing open. And folks, some of them never swung open. Am I disappointed? No, because I've lived my life and it's progressed in the way that I believe that God wanted it to progress. And I'm at peace with that. I'm good with that. And
Yeah.
so I'm going to anchor in that.
but you're not saying don't plan. We still plan.
Yeah, I'm going to plan less and I'm going to live right now a little bit more.
Okay.
That's my determination.
All right. What else did you write, David?
Okay, next is strategies have to be directly connected to actions. And
Okay.
and that's where my mind was on that day. But again, I'm a strategy guy. I strategize so much. I think about the future. I think about what's next. And I think a lot of us are that way. I know that a lot of our listeners are that way. But rather than just spread out, and when I say roll of paper,
Seriously, there is a huge roll of paper.
I
Really?
go to Office Depot or Staples or whatever, and I buy like this 100-foot roll of paper, and then I kind of drape it over a table, and I scroll it while I write on it, and then I've got like 100 feet of strategy and dreams and stuff like that. So, but I've decided that in the strategies over the next 20 years, that yes, I'm going to keep dreaming. I'm going to keep seeing things, but I want actions connected to those strategies a little tighter.
Hmm.
When I'm strategizing, I want not only actions that I'm going to do someday, but actions that I'm going to do right now.
Hmm.
Otherwise, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the strategy if I can't connect it to actions.
Okay, so how does this look different for you at 60 than it would maybe at 30 or 40?
Well, that's a great question, and I know that when I was younger, I was dreaming a lot of dreams, and those things were crafting out the bigger picture. So I'm not saying that everyone needs to make these decisions. I'm saying for me at this stage, at this place in my life, those are the decisions that I'm going to make.
Hmm.
I mean, there's some things that I accomplished that I wouldn't have accomplished had I not been taking that long range view. I mean, for one thing, the master's program that I got into
Hmm.
at age 48. Um, that was with some long range focus in mind, but that was still an action that was connected to the
Hmm.
strategy because when I looked at here are the things that I want to do in my life, what's going to get me from point A to point B? And so that was a huge action that I had to take in order to prepare for the things that were in my heart. So I'm not saying don't strategize, but for me, I'm going to be far more intentional than I used to be
Hmm.
in connecting actions to the strategies. A strategy with no actions connected to it is kind of like a waste of time.
Okay. All right. That's
Yeah.
good. Okay. What else?
Significance is only realized through the people you touch.
Hmm.
All right, a little bit of confession here, and that is, I one of the things that I had planned 20 years ago was I wanted to pastor a church.
Hmm.
I wanted to leave the district office and I wanted to pastor a church. And I felt like that was going to happen pretty soon
Hmm.
and that I would spend the next 20 years just pastoring a church, building that out. And wow, this is kind of a tough confession here. But as I have unpacked that, and even when I look at 20 years ago, as I was laying the path for it, and I talked to some phenomenal churches. I mean, I flew some distance more than once, sat down with a board, a pulpit committee more than once at age 40, 41, 42, and some of them would have been phenomenal opportunities. And one by one, either the door was closed or I chose to close the door to
Hmm.
things just because in my heart of hearts, in my spirit, I just knew, okay, this isn't the place. And it was frustrating.
Hmm.
I just wanted to pick a place and go, but I was trying to be sensitive to what God was doing. And as I continued to unpack that, I began to realize that one of the reasons that I really wanted to pastor a church is because I wanted a laboratory to be able to test some things out. I wanted to build a platform where many of the things that were in my heart could be proven out. And I slowly began to realize that pastoring a church is not about a platform
Hmm.
to um, to work out the the vision or
Hmm.
the things that are in your heart to do. And I had to learn to trust God to not do it my way.
Hmm.
And this was huge for me in my early 40s to trust God to say, okay, um, I need to believe God that He can use me in the gifts and in the passion that's in my heart for leadership development without doing it the way that I always felt like it needed to be done, which was to plant a church, to lead a church, and to really work it out in that environment that would then be a platform to be able to develop leaders out of that platform. I needed to trust God. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. Yeah.
I needed to trust God to do it His way
Hmm.
instead of the way it was in my head.
Because in your head, that would be significant for you to do that. So, what is it that made you think about significance is only realized through the people that you touch?
And
What
that is how we started down
it
this
is.
path.
So,
Yeah.
because that would have been a significant thing for you to
Hmm.
do, to start a church and to build out the things that were in your heart to do. So, what is it that made you think that?
Well, as I was setting on Saturday on my 60th birthday, reflecting, the reason that I wrote this point, significance is only realized through the people that you touch, is, folks, I love to build machines. I mean, when I was a kid, there was nothing in our home that was safe from me. I mean, I had everything apart. I took everything apart
Hmm.
that would come apart, and I've generally been able to get everything back together that I've taken apart, with the exception of maybe one thing, but um, um, which is another story. But I love mechanics.
Mm.
In my non vocational ministry calling life, I would have probably gravitated to be an engineer. That's
Hmm.
what I was thinking before this whole ministry track arose. And so I love to engineer things, I love to build things. And I have learned this lesson over 60 years, 40 some years of ministry, that it's about the people, it's not about the machine.
Mm.
Machines are designed to touch people, to make people's lives better, to see transformation in people's lives. That's what machines are for.
Hmm.
And I had to make that connect that I can't build a machine for the sake of the machine.
Mm.
This is about touching people. I can't write what I write because I love to write and I don't really care about anything else. No, it's about, will this be transformational? Will this touch anyone? You know, I read Patrick Lencioni's latest book about motive. I
Mm.
can't remember the title of it, but it's about leadership motive. And I really want to expand it because our heart is that the people that we work with and those that we serve, we want to see every one of them becoming or being led by and becoming
Hmm.
a transformational servant leader.
Right.
In order to see that develop in anyone's life, we have to be a transformational servant leader.
Hmm.
And so, whatever position of leadership, in whatever position of leadership I find myself, my motivation has got to be to see people strengthened, to see people grow, to see people come into the fulfillment of the calling upon their lives.
Hmm.
It is about serving people. So significance is only realized in the people that you touch. I could build a huge machine. I could invent something really cool. I could do amazing things. But if it didn't touch someone's life, what difference does it make? And so in the next 20 years, I want to be totally focused on that reality. Significance is only realized through the people that you touch.
Okay. Good, David. All right. What
Yeah.
else?
Well, next is, and again, these are my things, but decide what you believe, anchor, and stop searching.
Hmm. At 60, just figure it out, man.
Yeah, you know, in 20s and 30s and even into the 40s, you know, there were a lot of questions that I was trying to resolve, a lot of things that I was trying to work out doctrinally, a lot of journeys that we go on when we're younger.
Hmm.
And I realized that somewhere along the way, I had decided. I had decided who I was. I had decided what I believed, and I had decided that I wasn't going to change my mind.
Hmm.
And that sounds incredibly closed-minded. That you mean you're not open to, you know, I'm open to new scientific discoveries. I'm open to new learning, constantly new learning,
Hmm.
absolutely new learning. But at some point, I had to decide I believe that Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life.
Hmm.
And I'm not going to convert from that. I'm not going to change my mind from that point.
Hmm.
I have decided that. And I am going to cease from all searching as to who is the way, what is the way. I've decided that the way is Jesus.
Hmm.
It's the gospel. We have decided that the proclamation of the gospel is what our lives are about. And so we're going to anchor in that. And so as we anchor in that, I've decided what I believe. I'm going to anchor in it, and I'm going to stop searching, and
Hmm.
I'm going to anchor in the things that I believe.
Okay. That's good. Doesn't mean we don't ever have a doubt about anything, but it means that
Yeah.
we've decided.
I don't like saying this out loud because a lot of people might jump on it and take it to places that I don't intend for it to go. But, you know, there are those moments when I look at the circumstances around me and I look at the journey that we've been on. And there are those moments when I just wonder, is God really real?
Mm.
Is he really there, or is this something that someone made up that I bought into? And I'll have those brief moments. Um, I don't like to admit that. I don't know what that says about me. Probably says that I'm like everybody else. um, but it works through pretty quickly because I always think, what if it's not true? And the next place my mind goes to is, but I know him.
Mm-hmm.
I know him. And that's all of the substantiation that I need.
Mm-hmm.
I know God, and I know that he's real, and I've already made that determination. So it makes life for me a lot simpler at this point, just to anchor in the things that I have believed. And there is expansion of that knowledge, there's expansion of that understanding, there's revelation day by day by day.
Mm-hmm.
But it's building on the things that I've decided, the foundation that has been laid.
Okay. What else did you write about, David?
Character matters.
Mm.
If you sacrifice integrity and character for any reason, you lose.
Mm.
I've seen incredibly gifted
Yeah.
and talented people in my life that have accomplished far more than I ever hoped to accomplish. They've got more talent in their little finger than I have in my whole body. But I've seen some of those people lack character, and it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what you build. It doesn't matter what you accomplish. Doesn't matter how charismatic you are. If you lack character, you lose.
Mm.
It just doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And I have this radar that and I can eat the meat and spit out the bones.
Mm-hmm.
I'm able to do that, and so I can learn something from most everyone. But when someone's lacking character, I just tune out. I'm not really interested because I know that they're not on a good foundation. So to me, everything they bring, the good, the bad, the ugly, the beautiful, whatever, is suspect.
Okay.
So character matters.
Yeah.
If you sacrifice integrity and character for any reason, you lose.
Yeah. Okay. What else?
Well, this connects with it, and it's the way you live your life matters.
Mm.
It matters.
Yeah.
Sin is destructive. Holiness is beneficial. Your life is not your own. You're part of a community, and you have a responsibility to set an example in morality, holiness, and lifestyle.
Mm.
These are some of my anchors.
Yeah.
To him who knows to do right and they do not do it, to him that is sin. That's what the Bible tells us. Sin is destructive, that we cannot do just anything that we want to do and get away with it. Sin is destructive. And it's not only the matter of the eventual judgment of God, but it is, the word cosmic comes to mind. I don't know if that fits here, but it's just a cosmic principle that says that there is a price to pay for wrong decisions, and that's why God established some things to be sin, is simply because he knew they were destructive. It wasn't because God is this huge killjoy, but he knows them to be destructive.
Mm-hmm.
And so the way we live matters.
Yeah.
When we do the right things, then the right things happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that. And I have a responsibility to the community that I'm a part of to live right and to make good and right choices.
Yeah. And this leads to one final thought that you had.
The last one. And folks, I've got 30 of these.
Yeah,
I mean,
you've got way more thoughts than what we
just-
have here. We don't have time.
But these were the reflections on the morning of my birthday, just some things that surfaced as I was thinking about those 20 years that passed since that grand strategic plan. But the last one of all of these is the continuation of the thread that out of love, give lots of grace. See, I had to work through a lot of things in my life and on my journey. Had to learn a lot of things. There were a lot of decisions that I made that were founded in ignorance over these last 60 years. There were some things that I believed, just very doggedly believed, tenacious, and came to discover that I was wrong in some of those beliefs or some of those perspectives. And as I have learned and as I've grown in all of these things out of love, I've got to give a lot of grace to other people, that when other people are making mistakes or when they're needing to grow and they're trying to grow and they're trying to find the way, because God set the example for us in grace giving. And I need a lot of grace. I needed a lot of grace when I was younger, more so than I need now, but I still need grace. I'm still going to do stupid things. I'm still going to make wrong decisions. I'm still going to mess up from time to time. And I need grace from the people that I love. I need patience from the people that I love. Most of all, I need grace from God. And so I want to be a grace giver. I want to speak the truth, but I want to do it in love. And when we talk about being a transformational servant leader, I do want to be a transformational leader. I want to see people grow as a result of my leadership. And that's not going to happen unless I can give them enough grace to start where they are right now.
Yeah.
They can't start anywhere else. They have to start where they are right now, understanding everything. So I've got to be able to give them enough grace to start where they are right now. So we are just enjoying living this life. We're committed to pressing beyond the tough stuff and experiencing the joy of living, leading, and loving in our lives.
You believe that life is an adventure to be joyfully lived, David?
It is. It is. And so we have talked about reflections of a 60-year-old guy. Sometimes I think I don't want to tell people how old they are. I just shave the white beard off and, try to look a little younger, but it is what it is.
I like the beard.
So,
keep it.
Yeah. Thanks.
Well, thank you for listening to the Calibrate Life podcast, pressing beyond the tough stuff and experiencing the joy of living, leading, and loving. You will find a set of episode notes for this episode on our website at calibrate360.com/149.
Yeah, thanks for joining us today, folks. We are committed to continuing this Calibrate Life podcast. We hope that it's a blessing to you. If you want to check out the Africa Mission, go to calibratemission.com. Thanks for joining us today. We pray that you be blessed.